What's up, Internet? You're tuned into episode 43 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Peter Messi, joined as always by my partner in Steam Deck related crimes, the finest mind in the Steam Deck community, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back in the
Good
week of
week.
Summer Game Fest. Still got some Steam Deck news. Still got some hot questions coming in from the community. It's gonna be a good one.
I'm very pleased. Yeah, because going into this week, I remember we were like, is there gonna be Steam Deck news? Is there gonna be Nintendo news? Are those two shows gonna struggle this week while we're all talking about Summer Games Fest? And you know what? It has not disappointed.
Apparently not. No.
We got some good stuff to talk about. Y'all wrote in with some great questions, great comments for our main topic. We're going to talk all about Steam machines. I'm excited. It's going to be a good one this week, I think.
Yeah, should be. Fingers crossed.
But speaking of Summer Game Fest, I do want to just give a quick plug because I know a lot of you in the audience here only listen to the Steam Deck podcast and don't check out any of the other shows that we do. But over on the Flip Screen Games podcast RSS feed, if you're an audio listener, or over on our YouTube channel, if you're inclined to go watch on YouTube, we've got a bunch of Summer Game Fest coverage coming out this week. We just did a live watch along, which is currently not available in certain countries. I'm going to try and get it fixed by the time this is up, but we'll see what happens. So you can go check that
Thanks,
out.
NBC.
Yeah, right. Thanks so much for putting the Twisted Metal trailer in the presentation if we couldn't stream it. Thank you so much. But we did have our reaction to everything from the Summer Game Fest kickoff as well over there. So if you're so inclined, if you want to hear our thoughts about everything going on, go check it out. We're going to be doing another live stream of the Xbox showcase this Sunday. So if you want to come watch the showcase live with me and Steve and the rest of the community, we had a great time doing the Summer Game Fest kickoff. So hopefully you'll come and join us on Sunday as well. And if not, go check it out on the VOD later on because it'll be there for you. So that's enough shilling, I promise. We'll get into the show now. I want to kick things off by talking about some new accessories for the Steam Deck, something we've been talking about a lot in the last couple of weeks. eXtemerate is a website that is launching a new line of Steam Deck shells, several of which are, very much cultivating that kind of classic, the transparent purple. They got a transparent black, a clear one, and then they've got like a nice white one, this really cool, like purple, blue,
That's what I hate. That one, Chameleon Pearl, I think looks so cheap.
Oh, really? No, it's
fair
so
enough
cool.
if you're into it. That's the one I would not get. The white one I think looks great. I love the Atomic Purple. I can't believe they're getting away with calling it Atomic Purple, which I think was the actual name that Nintendo used back in the day.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
But I love the look of these. I think they look great. Good price, $35.99. Comes with the whole set of things that you need, including 93 screws. So I think that tells you how difficult it is to change these shells. So do not, in any circumstance, buy one of these.
I'm not gonna do it.
You will never ever do it.
I'm not gonna do it. I heard it takes 5 hours to take the front screen apart and then put it back together, and I was like, okay, enough for me then, I guess, huh?
Yeah, 93 screws. I couldn't believe it when I read it. But it's really cool though because they even come with transparent buttons.
The buttons are so hot.
Yeah,
that is so
they look
cool.
really cool.
Are you gonna do this, Steve?
JSAUX?
You gonna take one apart?
Absolutely not. No way.
We
this
need
is too much.
somebody. We need somebody in our lives who's brave enough to do this, so we can send it to them and let them.
Get Doc round to yours and get him to stream it.
That's that'd be some hard labor. It's like, Doc,
with a nice risk.
Doc, I want you to come travel to a different state, and then I want you to come and do hard physical labor for 5+ hours on this Steam Deck.
You'll have
while
to
you
be
make
like,
my channel money.
You can be one of the nurses in the surgery where they're like dabbing the forehead,
I
to
could
get
do
rid of the
that.
sweat off of the surgeon. As Doc's they're like taking apart your Steam Deck, trying not to break it. I think it would be really funny. But JSAUX also revealed some front faceplates, some translucent ones. They've teased it over on Reddit, but theirs didn't seem to come with different buttons. It seems to just be the black buttons that you carried on using. It was just replacement shells, and they've only shown off a clear one yet. Whereas the eXtemerate one is one up for sale, and 2 has those custom buttons, which I think look so cool. I really want to know what they feel like before like I commit to even touching it, but I think it looks so cool. I love the look of it. Transparent electronics really need to come back. They're so
They
cool.
really do. It's so weird that it's just it reminds me of the little, discussion we had about Joy-Cons on Nintendo Noise this week, where it's like, when there's an entire pocket industry out here making custom shells that are like this, and for, like, every console, every controller, right, you can buy a kit where you can give it the old school transparent thing. We're in, like, peak '90s,
Yeah.
nostalgia right now, everybody. Like, why are you not capitalizing on this? Why are you not selling us clear electronics?
Yeah, I need my Mad Catz version of the Steam Deck with some horrible rubber grips and yellow stuff all over it and with
I
the weirdest looking logo.
genuinely, without any sense of irony, I want a set of translucent for every type of controller I have. They're so nostalgic for me, you know? Like,
You've got have you got the translucent Xbox one, the, like, anniversary one they did?
I do have that one, the 20th anniversary one. Now,
Yeah.
it's partially translucent, but it's very cool. Yeah. And the parts that aren't translucent have like the back has the like more premium grips that they have on like the
Oh,
nicer
okay, yeah, that's
controllers.
nice,
And
yeah.
it's like very bright Xbox green, you know, it's got a nice texture to it. And then on the front, there's like a little kind of like 20th that logo they had, like, etched in it on the side,
Mhm.
which is really nice controller. And on the PS4, I had the Crystal DualSense that they did. It was, like, exactly the same as the how do you say it? Extemerate?
Extreme Rate.
Extreme Rate. Extreme Rate. Sorry, I was reading the notes, and I think we missed a letter. The Extreme Rate one, it was like it's like that exact same style with, like, the, like, frosted clear with the
Yeah,
guts, you
it looks
know?
really good. I
Yeah,
I I really like it.
I really wish they would make a new DualSense that has that look to it. I think that's the only one you can't, because like the Pro controller on the Switch is semi-translucent as well.
Yeah, not enough though. It's just that middle section and
Could
like
be more.
wraps around to the back. It definitely could be more, but I do like the kind of smoky color. I really like the slate one that Extreme Rate's doing for the Steam Deck as well, which very much reminds me of the Switch Pro controller. I don't know. There's something about it. I really like it, but 93 screws. You drop one of those, and you are screwed. And that's my concern is
Yeah.
pulling this thing apart. You struggled to even get the screws out of a Joy-Con for the
Okay,
last
look, I'm gonna
year.
blame the tool on that. All right, because I bought, and we're gonna talk about GuiliKit in a second here. I bought a GuiliKit set to replace my Joy Cons, and that screwdriver was perfect. It worked immediately, and I was like, okay, this was not a me problem. This was the all of the tools I had that claimed to be prepared for the job were not
Yeah,
prepared
apparently
for the
not.
job. I have
Cri
like a multi tool that has a bunch of different heads, and it has the exact shape, the proprietary shape of the Joy-Con screw, and they had it in 3 different sizes and none of them fit.
Oh,
It
that
was stripping
sucks.
the
Yeah,
screws. The
it's like
GuiliKit
the
one,
double
perfect.
zero.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's so tiny and specific that it's tough, but now that I got the
Have
GuiliKit
you
one, I'm all set.
done that yet? Have you put them in?
No, I haven't had time to do it because I wanna film it while I'm doing it, so I need to, like, break out a little
Get
bit
that
of
all set up.
time,
Yeah.
but, it looks like it's pretty easy, so I'm thinking I'm probably gonna try to get to it next week and then throw up a
Yeah,
little
it is.
tutorial on how to do
It
it.
is a really easy one, and it's well worth doing. I really like the GuiliKit sticks. I don't think I need to get them for the Steam Deck yet. I'm kind of just waiting that because inevitably they will drift at some point, right? And then I think it is worth
Yeah.
picking up the Ghillie stick kit sticks as a replacement. I did have concerns with their initial version, the SD01, because you had to solder it in order to bring back the capacitive touch on the sticks again. It didn't work.
Mm.
Whereas the new version, one, there's no soldering required. It's already done for you. The cap's already there. You just drop them in and it works. It's perfect. And two, there's no version A, version B, type A, type B, like there is with the actual official Steam Deck sticks now. You just have a switch on the back and you just flick as to whether you had type A or you had type B in your Steam Deck. 'Cause if you don't know, there are two different types of sticks that Valve use from two different vendors, and they're only compatible with certain boards. So you need to make sure you use the correct one. And apparently, this is 50% less power than the
Yeah,
previous one.
I just was that's
I
really
can't imagine.
interesting.
I can't imagine it was using much power anyway. But to shave off another 50%, then cool.
I mean, adds up, you know?
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I really love the GuiliKit sticks. I think they feel great. That I'm not worried about drifting anymore on my Switch. Like it's allowed me to play my Switch again, which previously I hadn't bothered because I just was not playing it handheld. Because all my Joy Cons were drifting, and these sticks have been perfect ever since I bought them, and I'm no doubt they will be for the Steam Deck as well.
Yeah, this is really cool. I think I'm kind of like you, where I don't necessarily feel like I need to replace them. I think the original joysticks are really good. And this, like, I'm looking. I've got the step by step guide they have on the page up for the kids on YouTube right now. It definitely seems like it's a bit more involved than a Joy-Con replacement. So, you know, um, I'm with you in terms of I think if this is something that you're inclined to do and you've got the confidence to do it, then they make good products, right? The replacements are very good and they're a worthwhile upgrade if you're so inclined. So, and again, yeah, that power revision is, I mean, who knows how much that actually means, but even if it means a couple extra minutes of playtime when you're on a plane or something like that, right? Like, hey, that's pretty cool. That makes a big difference.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I think this is the kind of thing that if I was gonna take my Steam Deck apart to replace the SSD and maybe do the whole shell replacement, it's the kind of thing you're just like, okay, fine, let's spend another 30, 40
Yeah,
bucks
right.
on
While
these
I'm
and let's
taking it
just do it
apart.
all in one go while I'm already taking it apart to replace the front shell. I might as well. And I think that would be probably the only time I ended up picking up these sticks.
Hmm.
But it is the easiest replacement. Valve made sure this was the easiest replacement. It's take the back off, it's take out a ribbon cable, it's undo some screws, and now it's just drop it in. Previously, you had to unsolder and resolder the cap. You don't have to do that anymore. It's just a kind of plug and play solution from GuiliKit, which is much better for people.
That's really great. Yeah, that's definitely that makes a big difference, right? I think soldering is scary if you don't know what you're doing. Whereas
Yeah.
just, dropping something in, screwing some stuff together is, that's a lot less intimidating.
You ever done any soldering? You ever screwed any up?
I haven't, but I'm gonna learn how to do it, because I've been kinda, as you can see, right, I'm taking my first Joy-Con apart and everything. I'm trying to get more into that side of tech and everything. Like, I was recently cleaning out, a relative's home, and I found, like, my great-grandparents', like, old house phone from when I was a kid, and, I'm gonna turn it into a microphone, and that's, like, a very, like, simple soldering job. I need to remove um, the wiring for the standard telephone cable, and you can replace that with a
Mhm.
microphone, kit, and it's, a pretty easy job, but it does require a bit of soldering, and that's, I think, gonna be my first attempt at it.
That'd be good. Yeah.
My friend M is gonna help me, and they know how to solder. So I'm not gonna be alone on it, but I'm gonna figure it out. And I'm hoping that once I have done a couple projects like that, that maybe I'll feel a little bit more emboldened to try something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's good fun. I'd love to become a little bit more versed in it so I can repair more things. My dad got me kits when I was like 12 to 16. He used to buy me like a kit, and it would be like you've got to solder all these parts onto a PCB and like put it together, and it would like do different
Your
things. Like there might
dad
be
is the
something with
fucking
like
best.
LEDs, or it might be like a radio that you built, like an FM radio. There was a bunch of stuff that I put together when I was a kid. So that helped me. That like improved my interest.
Your
But
dad lived through like the proto punk era of being a fucking nerd, and it's so cool. Like, it's so awesome that he did that. It's just like, you need to know how to do this, son. I was out here putting in codes line by line on PCs from magazines to play software. You're gonna know how to solder, you privileged little son of a bitch.
I think it's a skill that people have lost, and I do think that people are too willing to just toss something out, throw it away when it gets broken
Yeah.
rather than try and repair it.
Or pay someone
And
who
I
knows
think
what they're doing to fix it, you
yeah,
know?
and I think it's a real shame the amount of e-waste that as a species we produce and just toss into landfill when it would be totally viable to repair it or repurpose it as something else. It's ridiculous. Really ridiculous.
That's part of why I wanna, like, develop the skills is, like, not only to just maintain, like, my modern stuff if it goes wrong, right? Not have the solution always be, "Let me throw something away and replace it," but also, I am getting into like, I bought a CRT and stuff like that. Something goes wrong with it, it would be great to know how to fix it, you know, or to be able to learn how to fix it and be confident that I'm not gonna fuck it up, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, especially as retro things kind of age as well. Even being able to replace capacitors in electronics because they leak like crazy in older tech
Yeah.
is important, and being able to know how to use like a multimeter to follow traces and things. That's those are like skills that I think everyone should learn really.
Yeah, I got a couple projects like that I'm excited to play with. I have, like, my original Game Boy, I need to replace the battery, um the back of the battery thing because the connectors are busted because I played it so much, that
Those, if I remember, they're just slot in. They're just held
they're
in with
so
like
easy to
friction.
replace. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so easy to replace. So, like, I've got a couple little things like that where I'm like, "Alright, I'm gonna break some stuff open and try stuff," and
You should wire up like a lithium ion battery in there instead, and make it like rechargeable and like mod the hell out of
I
that
was thinking
thing,
about
bro.
replacing the screen and, like,
Yeah.
put an LCD or, like, a backlit thing or something like that. I also kinda wanna turn it into an instrument. Like, I've wanted to do that for a long time where you
Oh
can,
yeah,
like,
that'd be fun.
turn it
Yeah.
into a brain and then plug it into a synthesizer, basically. And like you can pull from the chipset and everything. Like there are other ways to do that with like emulation. You can kind of just emulate them.
Well,
This,
the
but it
analog pocket does it right, and that does
yeah.
actually properly emulate it because it's using the FPGA.
And it outputs so easily. It just has like a USB-C. I thought about
Yeah.
buying the analog pocket for that reason where I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like it's I will use it as a Game Boy, but also I'm more
I
interested
can
in it.
make music with it, yeah.
Yeah, as a synthesizer, you know? But I feel like there's something very romantic about taking my original Game Boy and turning it into a synthesizer that is like,
Until you
that's kinda
melt it, yeah, until you melt that board by mistake.
no, it'll be fine.
Or you're like, "Shit, I just pulled a solder pad off. What the fuck do I do now?"
Well, anyway, I I really like that this seems to be a continually growing market of people just making cool
Me too,
mods
yeah.
and, just, like, customization. It's like it feels, like, very akin to, like, car culture. I don't know if that's as much of a thing
Pimp my deck, yep, that's yeah,
yeah, like,
100%.
like, it feels like I remember going, in the summer, like, where I grew up, right, like, near the beach and stuff, you'd see all these people who would, like, meet at a spot and hang out, and they've got all these hot cars with lights under them, and the doors lift up and all that crazy stuff. It's like it feels like, it's like a real culture now at the Steam Deck of, like, flexing on the cool mods that you've installed.
Meanwhile, mine's stock. You know what? I wanna do a sleeper deck then, where it looks stock, it looks normal, but you turn it on and it's like it's faster, it looks cooler, like the screen's better, all of that shit. I think that would be a cool one. Like you hand it over to someone and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is different to mine. What's different?" And they can't like put their finger on it, but they know it's slightly better.
I got it lowered.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna talk about the Steam machine in a second, and if it's ready for a comeback in some shape or form. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of June. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valenz, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobi, Snackago, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You're all the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Speaking of which, this is my reminder to you to go check out our Summer Game Fest content. We got a bunch of good stuff over there. We had a lot of fun with the live stream. Remember, on Sunday, we're going to be streaming the Xbox and Starfield showcases. So hopefully you'll come hang out and spend some time with us. And of course, catch the VODs later on. Come join the community and keep chatting with
Maybe catch
everybody.
the VODs later on if NBC have
Hopefully.
their way.
Yeah, hopefully you'll have. We'll see if the DMCA lets us put those back up. But anyway, come and hang out. However you choose to get involved. We thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Steam Deck podcast. Flipscreen.games is the website where you'll find links to the Discord and more. All the places that you can get involved and check out all the cool coverage that we're doing on everything that's not the Steam Deck. So this question, right? The Steam Machine topic that we've got here, kicked off from a comment on our Discord from Team Linux 01 about a week and change ago or something like that, where Linux wrote in and said, "How much would you be willing to pay for a new Steam machine, and what kind of performance would you want with it? Let's say it included a new Steam controller in the price." So we read this question near the end of the show and tried to get folks to write in with their thoughts. A bunch of you did write in with your thoughts on, how a Steam machine could work or not work, and I'm interested to unpack this a little bit because I think how this product could take shape is a very interesting one because I don't necessarily see the purpose of this of a Steam machine to be as widespread adopted a device as I think the vision of the Steam Deck is. I think it is probably more of a in between type thing. Like it is maybe for that
Hmm.
user who we talk about all
I
the
think
time.
it fills in the niche of what the original Steam machine was. It's someone who wants to play Steam games, but they want to play them on the TV, or they want to have a plug and play solution where they can just plug in a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor, and they can get going.
They
In the
don't want to
same way that
build a
that was the
PC.
Steam Deck. Yeah, that was the Steam Deck, right? It's like boot into the Steam game interface rather than I go into a desktop interface. But I can kind of dig in the background if I want to, install Lutris, install games from other platforms if I want to. It's whether that there is a need for that, right? We had a bunch of people write in. John who was saying that they don't necessarily think they're going to bring them back. It'd be easy to make a Steam machine out of anything. An old work tower and GPU and controller is a perfectly servable Steam machine. Armo said you can make a gaming PC cheap. So what's the point? Like consoles, it's always been that way. If you take an open platform like PC and close it down to be only Steam consoles, people won't be happy. And I don't necessarily agree with that comment. I don't think they would take it and close it down. I think it would be the approach that they did with Steam Deck, right? Where it is an open platform and you can do whatever the hell you want. And we've seen that with the things that we spoke about at the top, right? With the transparent shells and the
Right.
GuiliKit sticks.
Yeah,
They've
the
been
Steam
all
machine
for it.
wouldn't be a console. It would be a hybrid device in the way that the Steam Deck is, right? It's like, and I think that's what makes the Steam Deck so attractive is that it is a open source PC platform, but it's in the casing of a handheld, right? So like I have multiple friends that because of this podcast and because of my talking about a Steam Deck went out and bought a Steam Deck, but they're not PC people. They're not the type of people that want to hack or install things or, like play with drivers or any of that stuff. They just want a handheld gaming device. And for them, that's what the Steam Deck is. And that's cool, right? And like when they
Yeah,
do,
we know a bunch of people in the community that's like that as well.
yeah,
But when there are also people like Stevie Yaki who's sticking a SSD on the back of his Steam Deck and plugging it in and
he's
installing
out here
Windows and
building a
doing all that
Mad
crazy
Max
stuff.
machine.
But
He's throwing weapons on the back of this thing,
yeah,
he's installing lasers and stuff. I don't know.
but someone like you who isn't even really, other than EmuDeck, I would say, isn't really delving into the desktop mode, isn't installing from other
Not
marketplaces
a
and
ton.
things.
No.
And like I get almost next comment, spending £500 on a Steam machine and not being able to play Diablo or Fortnite, and that is a valid argument, right? That it is only Steam by default, and Epic hasn't got a Linux version of their launcher. Neither does Battle.net, but you can play at least Diablo on your Steam Deck natively through Lutris and Proton. Fortnite, not so much. You do, I think, have to jump through a few more hurdles to get anti-cheat and stuff working. But I don't know. I don't necessarily see the argument that we don't need it because you could build a PC. I think there is a space. I mean, one, we still don't have the installer for SteamOS, so I can install SteamOS if that's my kind of flavor that I want with the really nice interface. It's easy to use. I can install that right now. It's coming, and we know that, but it's not here right now. And two, I really do think there is just a market for people who just want plug and play systems. We've seen that with consoles, but I think they want plug and play systems to be able to play their large library of Steam games that they've collected over the years, or games that aren't available on console. There are a bunch of games I play on PC that I cannot play anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think the idea of, well, why wouldn't you just do this? Why don't you just build that? It's like, why don't the you could add that or apply that same argument with like the Steam Deck and like a gaming laptop then, right? Where it's like, oh, like why would we've seen how many people on like the Steam Deck subreddit, right? Who plug their Steam Deck into a monitor and have a keyboard with it and they use it as a work machine as well. They use it for things that are not necessarily just gaming related. And they get that mileage out of it, right? And it's like you could easily look at that person and be like, "Why would you do that? Why don't you just buy a gaming laptop then, and then you have a more versatile device?" And it's because they're not the same, right? Like they're the idea of why buy this simple plug and play thing for $500 when you could, right? In this example, right? Armo says 500. I mean, for starters, building a proper gaming PC is more money than that. It's 1,000, right? And it's like,
I think you can, though, to build something that's comparable to the Steam Deck's level of performance, which I think is what they would probably target. I mean, maybe they'd look to target, as Team Linux has said in their response, 1080p 60 FPS with HDR and VRR, and I think that makes sense, right? It's going to be plugged into a TV, it's going to be plugged into screens that do support HDR and VRR, and they've been putting work into SteamOS to do that. We think it's coming in 3.5. But I think probably you're right, $800 to $1,000 for something that's pretty reasonable, that's going to have a decent headroom.
and then
My
again, real quick though, not to cut you off, but like in addition to what you just talked about for the investment of matching the power, if you're buying a traditional PC, maybe not the same problem if you have a laptop, but then if you buy a laptop, you can't upgrade it, it's limited. There are problems that come with laptops. If you own a tower and you this is your first PC, you don't own a mouse, a keyboard, or a screen either, and those are not cheap to buy good ones.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, but
So
I think that's not the use case here, right? Team Linux said in their question that say included a Steam controller, and I think that's the approach they would do. Is that this is a controller centric device, and you've got the touchpads and the virtual
no, no, no,
on-screen keyboard and all of that
totally.
stuff.
My point is, if you were trying to like going with what John, you and Armo are saying, if you were just going to be like, why would I buy a Steam machine when
Oh
I could
yeah,
just
you'd
build
need
my
to
own
buy all the
PC?
accessories with it. Yeah.
You need to buy all the accessories and maybe you already own a controller, we'll say. So maybe you don't buy a controller, but if you don't, then you're buying a controller as well. That's another 60 to $80 depending on what you're buying. And on top of that, the other thing that you guys are not factoring in is labor. It is work to assemble a PC. And if you don't know how to do that, it's not it's not a thing that you can just like I mean, you
Yeah,
can.
and you've
You
got to get pre-built like from someone like Alienware or whatever,
or
and
you need to
they're
pay
a
a
premium.
website like Newegg a premium to put it together for you. Or
Yeah.
you need to learn a skill set that you didn't have before. And I'm not
Which
saying
is
that it's
fun,
a
which will be a good thing to learn, and I do think
sure,
people should learn how, PC components go together,
you're right, but not
but
everybody
not everyone
wants
wants
to.
to. Yeah, like, my dad did all that stuff back in the day, did teach me how to solder, but he's the kind of guy now who just wants to play games. He wants to sit down and play them and not even faff around with settings. Like, he'll stick with the defaults on whatever the game has given him on Steam Deck because he just wants to play it, and if it
Mhm.
runs at 30, it runs at 30. If it runs a little bit higher than that, then great. But I don't think he really modifies and plays around with things. And I think a lot of people are like that. I think for me, though, the biggest question is, are they ever going to do this? Do they need to do this with the Steam Deck? And I don't think they do. I think the right approach is what ROG is doing with the Ally. But I think rather than the proprietary cable with the eGPU, I think if Valve can do a Steam Deck 2 with an Oculink connector on top that can plug into just an enclosure with a GPU, and we can kind of utilize that when it's plugged into like a dock, I think that's the right approach. I think that's the kind of route that they go where you get a pretty good experience on the go that's targeting 720p and you're getting 60 FPS. But then when you go home and you want to plug it into your TV or to a desktop and you want to do a little bit more intensive tasks, you can utilize the eGPU. Now, the Steam Deck can be pretty CPU bound at times, but I think by turning off all like by utilizing all of the cores for CPU and passing off all of the graphics to a discrete GPU, you've got a lot more to play with then. There's a lot more headroom. Everything can all the kind of CPU computing can be done on that chip. And then all of the GPU can be offset to an external GPU. And I think, we've seen the next chip that the Steam Deck's going to get is probably going to be the one that's in the ROG Ally or at least a variation on it. And that for me, I think, is the approach they would take. I don't think I see them going for a Steam machine at this point, but I would really love a new Steam controller.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, which I do think is a bit disappointing. I would be a lot more interested in a new Steam machine and a new Steam controller than a new Valve VR headset. I think it's a shame that it seems like that's where their focus is, when it
I
comes
think I
to.
think they're different teams. I think the Steam Deck team, they're doing their thing, and I think the
Sure.
Index team is doing their thing. And
I just
I
mean when it comes to hardware, like their focus
yeah,
seems to be on the Steam Deck and whatever the successor is to the
yes,
Index,
yeah.
right? And I think that's kind of disappointing. I love the Steam Deck. Obviously, that's been a huge success. Um, I just, I don't know. Like, obviously, Alex, right? What they did with Half Life Alex was a real innovation in VR. So maybe that's reason enough for them to stay in that space. Is that like they are a company that can innovate and make something that is, you know, deeper and more special in that space, and like that's cool. But I think it would be really cool to see them take another stab at the Steam controller. I think it would be really cool to see them try to continue to build the deck ecosystem for folks that don't own a
Mhm.
gaming PC and don't want to own a gaming PC, or that think they don't want to own a gaming PC. Because I think that's what's so powerful about the Steam Deck is
It's
it
like a gateway.
yeah, it's an evangelizer for PC gaming, I think, for folks who are turned off by it for a myriad of reasons, right? And, whether you agree with those reasons or not, they exist for certain people. And there are a lot of people that just don't want to engage with it. And because of that, there are exclusives that they're missing out on. There's obviously the financial benefit of the Steam ecosystem being so affordable and so, like,
And just
so
like an
many
open
sales.
platform, I think people didn't realize that, oh, I can emulate all of these games, I can install from other marketplaces, I'm not restricted just to like buying games from PlayStation or from Xbox.
Mhm.
I can get them from wherever I want and I can install them. Or if I've got these old games like abandonware, I can play those. I went back and I played a bunch of old games that don't exist anymore,
You never made
aren't
that video. Where's
available.
that video,
No, I
Steve?
know. Yeah, it's still on the cards. Don't worry, it's gonna be coming at some point.
I need you to make it so I can play Black and White on my Steam Deck. Been trying to play that game for like 15 years. It's been
Yeah, but
gone.
that's the thing, right? There's so many games that got lost. I think about Simpsons Hit and Run, one of my favorite games when I was a kid. You can't replay that anywhere because of licensing,
I
but I
had the
can play it
same
on a
thing with
PC.
Tony Hawk's Underground, right? Where I played that and I got to play what was effectively Tony Hawk's Underground remastered that I would have spent $70 on for free, and
Yeah.
that's cool, and it's not from the ground up, right? But it ran better, it looked better, and it's I'm not a hardware tinkerer, but like I have played a lot with emulation over the years on a myriad of devices, right? And there's no like, and I think just like holistically, I've never had an experience that I thought was as good as the Steam Deck experience when it comes to emulation. Even when I had, I think it's Launchbox is the program that I was using most recently, where
Oh,
I
okay.
had
There's a lot like Launchbox Emulation Station. There's tons of
yeah,
those kind of things.
and
Yeah.
it's like it's a housing program for all of your emulators, and you can launch them all and have like an organized library and everything. And that was a pretty good experience, right? Like I it was better than having a bunch of emulators and folders or whatever, but the Steam Deck experience, like with the ROM manager and everything, like that is just such a it's such a perfect seamless experience. And as much as I was willing to jump through a certain amount of hoops to play those games and to experience them on PC in that way, there's something to be said for how convenience influences behavior. And we've talked about this a lot with like the current gen consoles, when especially in the early days of that generation, when people were kind of complaining about, oh, there's nothing out, and like the promise of this generation hasn't delivered yet or whatever. And you and I were talking so much about, yeah, but the quality of life features, the loading,
Well,
the quick
yeah, and like
resume, like
not even to mention the backwards compatibility over on the Xbox side, where a game that was running at 30 FPS is now running at 60, and it's got HDR with auto HDR and all of these other features that Microsoft was just piling in. And we know, right, that a lot of that was motivated by the fact that their studios were kind of stagnant, that they didn't really have much lined up in terms of releases, and that was a big motivation during the Xbox One era to even launch the backwards compatibility program because there was so many comments of, "Well, the hell do I even play on my Xbox?" Over on the
right,
PlayStation Cat, they've got all of these exclusives, and you've got nothing for me. And so that they booted up that backwards compatibility program, and it turned out to be one of the best things they ever did. It's what I still think an Xbox Series X or a Series S is one of the best places you can go to play 360 and Xbox One generation games. Probably even better than playing them on PC, as you found with some of those games from that era very much expect you to have a keyboard and mouse and have no kind
yeah,
of
like there's not
contingency for
parity
controllers at
between
all.
the console and PC version at all, right?
Mhm.
I had that with Dragon Age when I first tried to play it on the Steam Deck. I was like, "Oh no, shoot, this does not work." Um, but yeah, and I think, those quality of life changes changed my habits, right? Like having quick resume, having less load time. It makes certain games, easier to jump in and out of, right? Like something like Persona 5 Royal, right? Where like there are static save points, but like maybe you want to jump out and play a different game. Like to me, I'm the kind of player where if I don't have the time to dedicate in those big chunks, I might be like, I won't play Persona right now because I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to get to a save point. And then what if I want to use my console, right? That happened to me on the PS4
Yeah.
and I fell off the game. On Xbox Series X, that's not a problem, And I think
Especially back then, like, everyone was using their consoles as, like, media centers as well, so it's like,
exactly.
"Oh, I can't watch Netflix because I've got Persona running.
In
Well, I'm not gonna bother
suspension.
playing Persona then." I think that's also one of the things I love about emulation is being able to use these save states for these older games that were designed to kinda be played in 1 sitting
Mhm.
or 2 sittings where I just run through it, and there aren't even any save points in some of them, right? And it's literally just you got to play it from start to finish, and if you complete it, you complete it. If you don't, well, I guess try again tomorrow and hope that your mum didn't turn off your SNES.
Right, exactly. And yeah, and I think when you talk about the advantage of machines like this, right, of the Steam Deck and of a theoretical Steam machine, it's those types of things that I think are the deciding factor, right? Where like, yeah, you could buy a gaming PC and maybe get something that's more powerful for the same amount of money or whatever, but like, are you going to do that? Right? Is that something you're going to go through the trouble to do? And in the emulator example that I just gave, I went through the trouble of setting up Launchbox and getting all my emulators set up and downloading the ROMs I wanted to play and getting my controllers set up and syncing them and going through all that trouble. But because of all the work it took to do all that stuff, I spent a lot more time setting that stuff up than I ever did playing the games, right? Whereas on my Steam Deck with EmuDeck, going through, okay, it's 3, 4 button clicks at the end of the day, and I have my whole library set up. I replayed and beat several retro games in the first couple months of the Steam Deck, I went back to games I haven't played in 20 years, and got that hit, and like beat games that I had started as a kid and never finished, and stuff like that. That's really cool. And the convenience of the Steam Deck and of the emulation and that quote unquote native feeling experience that is the reason I played those games the way I did and got into them the way I did, because it was easy and because it was seamless and because it was plug and play. And a lot of people are just not going to do legwork to do something just because it's cheaper or more powerful or whatever, because they want convenience. Look at Apple. That's their whole business model, right? Is like, yeah, oh, you could do anything with an Android phone. You have total control over it. A lot of people don't want total control. They want a phone that lets them get on the internet and download
I
apps. That's it.
Yeah, so, like, in programming, it's like a you can have some, say, framework that's really, like, open and you can do whatever you want with it. But a lot of developers really like opinionated frameworks where whoever's put it together had an idea of how you organize your files, how you write your code, how you do this, that, and the other. I would say like an iPhone is a very opinionated device in that it
Yeah, there's a
wants you to
right
do
way to
things in
do
a
things.
specific way. Yeah. Whereas an Android phone is open. I think Google devices, particularly like Pixel phones and things, they clearly have an opinion of what they want Android to be and what they kind of expect you to do. You can completely reinstall a different launcher on it if you want to have a different experience and change the icon sets and all of that stuff. And I do think there are different types of people. I think you're right. I think there are some people who just want to buy a PC and they want to run it in the way Valve wants them to run it. And they just want to play their games and download it. And it's an experience that's kind of done with them. And if something goes wrong, they've got a great support network behind them that they can go on to the Steam website and just like go in the forum and find out what's going on or contact support and get an RMA. You can't do that if you've built a PC. I remember when you built your PC and you had a friend helping you out, right? But it wouldn't boot, it wouldn't post initially, and
Yep.
it was one part that was broken. I think it was the
It was
RAM,
the
if I
RAM. It
remember
was one of the
correctly.
sticks of RAM that they shipped to me was broken.
Yeah, and that's gonna happen. Things are gonna be DOA. But do you really wanna go through it and figure out exactly what part it is and go back to the store or send it back and have another part delivered to go through that? A lot of people don't. And then buy a copy of Windows or find an installer for a flavor of Linux that you like and go with that, go down that route. I do think there's something to be said about it.
And also, again, right, to take it back to the game, the PC that I use right now, right? The person who helped me build it, that's his job. His job is to build PCs, and something went wrong and it took us multiple several hour sessions between the original setup of going and putting it together, and then it wasn't working. Okay, well, now we have to test every individual part to see what's not working. Okay, we figured out that we think that this is what's wrong. So now let's send that back, go buy a replacement, install the replacement, hope that it works. Okay, it did. Great. Now let's install, and it's like that took weeks, and in the grand scheme of things, between me picking out all the parts that I needed, waiting for them to show up, going to my friend's house to help me, going back a week later when he had time, and it's like, and I know more than the average person when it comes to this stuff, right? Like I am
Mhm.
way more inundated in this world than the average person, and I still needed help to solve this problem from somebody who is a professional. That is like a level of work and stress that the average person does not want to go through to play a fucking video game.
Especially when a console exists, right? Especially when I could pay a premium and buy a PlayStation or an Xbox and I can just plug
Not
it
not
in.
to mention, the reality that, like, in the grand scheme of things, right, the experience playing on PC is better, but also if you don't know how to optimize it, it probably won't be better. Or if you get a bad port, then it won't be better. And if you don't know how to fix it, then it won't be better. And it's like it requires a skill set and a level of knowledge that somebody who, like you said with your dad, right? He just wants to sit down and play a video game, you know? And I
I
feel the
think a lot of
same.
people do. People are working, they just
I
wanna
only
come
have so
home
much
and they just
time.
wanna play play a game with their friends or whatever, yeah. I think if they are gonna do it though, which I don't think they will, to kind of loop back to Team Linux's question and kind of put a pin in it. I think the level of performance I would want would be like 1080p 60 at minimum, but I would like the ability to upgrade it in the future. I think that's
I
important,
think it has to hit
being able to have
4K.
slots in there.
I think it has to hit 4K. Like if you're asking me to spend, because right, because their response was, I would price between 800 to 1,000, and that would include the $80 for like a Steam controller. Them trying to clear some level of profit, um, and trying to target that 1080 60 FPS. I just, I think that's too
I
low. You're
think
telling me
maybe
that
you
I'm
can
gonna
go
spend.
40 and 40p. I don't think true 4K is really necessary for a lot of games. you're not getting it from consoles for the most part. It's being upscaled, it's being checkerboard
Yeah.
rendered, it's
Yeah, you're right.
they're
But
using
again,
FSR, and if you've got an NVIDIA chip in there, you can use something like DLSS, so it doesn't really matter, and you will
that's
get
true.
a 4K output on there, which they could do, but, I mean, they've got the partnership with AMD, they're gonna continue down that route. I can't see that they would just be like, "Yeah, let's chuck an AMD, an NVIDIA GPU in there," but if they've got support for eGPUs, that's something that the user could decide to do, and they could upgrade in the future and be like, "Okay, it's time for me to put a 3080 on this and see what
Yeah, which
can
would
actually
that would
really be
be
done."
really cool. That would be nice to have that, like, choice and that modular ability, but again, I do think you'd wanna have I mean, I think you need parity with at least the current gen consoles, right? In terms of its output, like, because otherwise you're overpaying for what is essentially a console, right? Like, you want it to be, I think, similar in price, but you want to have the advantage of like, yeah, but it's open, right? Like, you can do anything with this thing, and like, it is, and paying a little extra for that is cool, but like if you're paying extra for something that is ultimately less powerful and more difficult to use than an Xbox, right? Or a PlayStation, then that's a losing battle, right? It's gotta
Yeah.
I think it's either gotta be so powerful that whatever, fine, I'll jump through hoops, or it needs to have that Steam Deck type experience where it's like, yeah, no, like more or less, we take care of everything for you. If you want to get in there, you want to tweak, you want to play, feel free. But at the end of the day, this should be a device that I can plug it in, download whatever the latest game is on Steam, and it should run as well as my friend who's playing it on an Xbox. I think that's the floor it needs to hit to be
And to be honest, a lot of the
successful.
times I'm getting that on Steam Deck, you know? If I'm
Yeah,
playing a game,
totally.
an indie game, if I'm playing, say, Cult of the Lamb on Xbox, I'm probably playing exact same experience over
Totally.
on Steam Deck, and it's no problem whatsoever. Same with older games, like, if I'm playing older games, I've been playing Far Cry 6 on my Steam Deck. I'm getting, it's like 720p 30. On a Series S, I can only get up to 30 FPS, so I don't see any problem with it. I think they could achieve parity with the other consoles. My final
Yeah.
question for you, Pete, would be, how much are you willing to pay for a Steam controller? Let's say they dropped Steam Controller 2 tomorrow, it had all the features we wanted, it's got the capacitive, sticks, it's got the touch pads, it's got gyro, it's got those back buttons on there. What are you dropping for a Steam controller, or what price do you think they're gonna do?
I like the price I like the price that that Team Linux suggested. I think $80 feels good. I think yeah, because like the DualSense and current Xbox controller, I think are like in that like 65-70 range, right? And the
Yeah,
idea that
what's the, like, premium ones costing though? The
they're
Edge
in the
and
hundreds. Yeah.
I think that's probably where they would need to go.
And I was gonna say,
And I would want, like,
I
Hall
think I'd
effect
be
sticks on
willing
there.
to go as high as 100, but I think if they could hit 80, 85 even, that would feel good. That would be like, yeah, amazing. Yes, pick one up day one. If it's more than that, I think you get people into that range of like, now it's a premium controller. Is it as good as the Xbox premium controller? Is it as good as the PlayStation premium controller? If I'm only going to own one, which
I
one's the
think it's
best
different
one?
though. Like, it's got touchpads, it's got the back buttons, it's designed for a PC experience, like a general navigating around a PC in games I couldn't play with a traditional controller. I think it's more than 80. The the dock is £79 in the
Yeah.
UK, and I think there's a lot less tech in there than there would be in a Steam controller. I think they're probably looking at 100, maybe even
Just to
$120 for
push
the
back on
controller.
the dock though, you've made this point a lot. The price of the dock has more to do with the charger being included than it does the tech in the dock, right?
Good point, but I do think that there's a lot of tech that goes into it. You know,
Yeah.
you've got the all the buttons, all the sticks, all the touch pads. You've got to have the vibration in there. There's the gyro. There's a lot of stuff in there
So what do
that
you
I
think, like
think people are
120?
going to want. Yeah, I could see 120, and it probably includes a case, and it's like a nice thing that you can kind of carry with you. Maybe you can charge it in the case in the same way that you can with
Yeah.
the Xbox and the PlayStation One. I could see that being a nice experience. And then it is a premium product because it's a niche product. Not everyone's going to want one. and I think to charge it
I
at that
think the
little bit of
thing is,
premium.
though, I think if they made it more affordable, I could see it being more popular, right? Where it's like not everybody is gonna want one. It is gonna be a more niche product. But I think if it's $80, if it's closer, if it's sub 100, right? Even if it's $90, I think that's a way easier sell for a lot of PC gamers to be like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like I'll use this as my new PC controller, right? Or like maybe I still use my other fancy controller when I'm playing like certain types of games or whatever, but like I want to play an
Those
RTS in my
fancy
bed. I want to
controllers, cost more than you think, though. Like, I've just looked up how much a DualSense Edge costs, and I did not realize it was
Oh
£210.
yeah, that one's 200, right? How much is the Xbox one? That one's closer
Yeah.
to like 150, right? Or
So they've
160
got the
maybe?
Elite, and then they've got the Elite Core. The
That's the newer one,
Elite
right?
is 150, and then the Elite Core is 104. But then it doesn't come with any of the extra bits. Like, it doesn't come with the case,
Yeah.
doesn't come with the back paddles. So you're probably looking at 150. And I think if they can come in under that 100 to 120, I think it looks like an appealing choice in
Yeah,
comparison to an
I
Elite
agree.
controller and a DualSense Edge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I
And
think
I'd
you
pick one up.
I think you just
Yeah.
want to stay away from that tier. You don't want to get to the point where people are comparing it to those
Yeah.
devices because then it's a question of which one do I buy rather than, oh, this is another controller in my arsenal that I should just get. If it is closer to that 100 sub 100 price point, I think that's a way easier impulse buy, you know?
But and especially if it's got a decent battery life, the Xbox controllers, they cost 50 quid. They don't have battery packs built in. You've got to pay extra for the chargeable battery pack if you want. And the PlayStation controllers, they're like 60, but the battery lasts for about 2 minutes, and then you've got to charge it up. I think if you can get one that's got like
To be
battery
fair, the
life
DualSense
that's
the DualSense has a much better battery life.
I
Like
think
the
it's rated as 3 hours.
No, it's not that little. I don't think
Yeah,
that's
it's rated as
true.
3 hours.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the same as the Project Q, and we spoke about that a couple of weeks ago, that it was like
Yeah.
3 to 4 hours. It's a very small battery in
I
there.
don't feel like that doesn't feel accurate to me. Like I don't
Yeah,
I
maybe they're undersaying and, like, over-delivering
yeah,
kind
maybe.
of thing, I
A-
don't know.
And it's also possible like I have two. So, and I whatever one I'm not using I keep plugged in, so it's possible that maybe it's like psychosomatic and I am switching them more than I realize, but like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm changing
The
them that often. I feel like they're lasting at least, you know.
reviews were saying they were getting 4 to 6 hours.
Like that feels
Um,
right to me. That feels right. 4 to 6.
Even still, though, I want more like 12 hours, which is what I get with my, Switch Pro controller. I feel like I never plug that thing in,
You
and it lasts
cannot. You
forever and ever and
cannot
ever.
compare that. I don't know what the hell the battery in the Switch Pro controller is made out of. But I swear to God, you buy that thing, it comes charged, and then it's like that's it.
You
You just
charge
you
it
never
once.
you don't plug it in again.
Yeah,
Mine
that thing's
mine
ridiculous. I
often
haven't charged it since I played Tears of the Kingdom,
I
and
haven't
it's still
either.
going,
I no no
and
you
I've
know what?
played, like,
I plugged it
60
in once.
hours.
I plugged it in once actually in that time, and
Yeah,
I've
but you
played
played
almost
over
100 hours
100 hours,
of that game, and I would say probably 70% of it's been docked with a Pro controller. So yeah, I've
which is
put
mental. Absolutely
like
insane battery.
yeah, but also it doesn't have a quarter of the functionality that the
Not
DualSense has.
really. All it's like, what's it missing? The adjustable like, triggers and a
I mean, come on,
touchpad.
that's got to take a lot of
No, but that's
power.
the only 2 I don't think it does. They're
You
just
don't think
magnets.
so?
No, I don't.
Mm, okay.
I think a lot of it is the stupid lights they keep putting on it, and I don't know what kind of, like,
You need it for VR, Steve. You need it for
oh,
VR.
just so annoying, just take them off. That was what's sucking the battery life out of the DualShock 4, and we got it again with the DualSense. Oh god, it's a big pain.
It's
And
so
it just that
silly.
thing just lasts forever. It's great. And it's got gyro support. It's got pretty much everything I could want. I don't know, I love that controller. It's
It's
great.
great. It's no shade against the Pro controller. I'm just saying, like, I feel like the DualSense is the most. It has the most functionality of
It
a
does. Out of all
controller
of the controllers,
of
yeah,
the
it
three of the big
definitely
three.
does.
You know.
Yeah.
Um.
I mean, recently I've had to even turn off the adaptive triggers because I have real problems with my hands, so I feel like I'm missing out whenever I play without it. I do like the adaptive triggers.
Yeah. Yeah. When they're used well. I mean, I've there's been
Horizon was the best example, and you had to turn that setting on. But then you get the feeling of like as it goes to, like the overshoot, and you get that
Yeah.
ching, and then you can feel it's ready.
I like that in Ratchet and Clank a lot too, where it was like if you half hold the
Every
button.
weapon felt
Yeah,
different.
if you
Yeah.
half hold it down, it shoots 1, but if you pull it all the way, it shoots 4, right, or something like that. Like those are cool things. Um, and yeah, I mean that's the thing is like the Steam controller theoretically, like our vision for a Steam controller too, where it is like essentially just has parity with your experience of holding the deck. You know, the touchpads are not. I imagine that's pretty expensive, right? Getting those in there is probably not a cheap ask. So
Yeah, I think that's expensive, and that's where the haptic feedback comes from. I'd like also on a standalone controller, I want better rumble. I feel like that's something that I would really want.
I feel like size would be an interesting thing of it. 'Cause it's like, how big is that in your hands to have both of them and have
Yeah,
the
I
back.
I pho
I think it would
I
feel weird.
photoshopped one together for, like, a thumbnail, before, and I took, like, the GuiliKit controller and then put the, like, stick like, the trackpads below, and, like, the sticks were kind of in line. It was a messy thing, like, that's gonna take some real design and some ergonomic testing,
I
but I
think
do
it's
have faith that they could do it because they did it with the Steam Deck. Everyone was like,
see,
"This is the goofiest looking thing."
real quick, it's so funny to me that, like, we were talking just what, like, 2 weeks ago about Project Q like, Steam Deck community absolutely ripping it apart because it's like, "Oh, it's just a they took a dual sense and shoved a screen in the middle," and our big idea for a Steam controller is, what if you
Take
just
the
take the
screen
screen
out.
out and shove it
Yep.
together?
I'd be so on board with that, though. They should do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm with you. I would really like that. I think that I could really see that making um the deck experience something that's more attractive, you know?
Mhm. Well, fingers crossed for the future and whatever Valve brings us.
All right, so let's put a pin in the initial question here because we talked a lot around it. What would you pay and what performance do you want? Because I think,
I
like we
think
said, I think
750.
parity with the modern consoles as the floor, hopefully a bit higher than that. And I think if you had.
I want the like the expansion ability where I
Yeah,
can like plug in additional storage and eGPUs and things like that to give it that extra headroom for the future.
and I think to extend that, I would wanna see them replicate what they did with the Steam Deck and have multiple SKUs where you have maybe a cheaper model that is, like, price parity with the modern consoles or, like, a little more expensive, like, maybe in 600 and you can't expand it, you can't mod it. It's more simple, it's more closed, and then
No,
you
I
have.
struggle with that because, like, I don't, because that then opens up the fact that there's multiple power options, there's multiple kind of SKUs that developers need to target. It's not just they're all the same performance, but it's just the storage that you have to worry about. And I like that with the Steam Deck currently, and maybe they could do something
Yeah,
similar.
I
Like
guess
you
that's
get the
true, but
64 gig slow storage or whatever.
you'd have that same experience if you offer expandable,
I
um
think with an eGPU, it's kind of different because it's optional. It's what someone's added after the fact. I don't know. You could be right.
But that's
But
the thing, right? Is
personally,
you just have a
uh,
base experience that's the same across all of them and
yeah.
that's the
Oh, okay.
minimum.
I get that.
You know
Yeah.
what I
But
mean?
I see with the ROG Ally, it just seems a bit clumsy. The marketing around it, that there's two different chips and
No, but
two
that's the thing
different
is I don't think
SKUs and different
that's not what I'm
storage
suggesting.
options.
I'm suggesting it being like the Steam Deck where there's a standard chipset and it's just like the functionality of the more expensive, like, in the more expensive Steam Deck, okay, there's more memory, there's more this, it's got a better screen, it's got a better case, whatever. I think
Yeah.
you do something like that where it's like it comes with an adapter for expandable memory for maybe the 800 and $1,000 model and you don't include that technology in the cheaper
Oh, see,
version.
I'm fine. I think it's fine to include. I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. I think I'd want all the functionality there. But I think storage is the one thing that they could cheap out on because you could easily expand that with like an external
Yeah, that's true.
SSD, or maybe have a slot in there that you could just open up and put your own SSD in there. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think 650 to 750, 800 would be as most as I would want to pay for a device like this, but then I would just build a PC if it was any more than that. And I have the skill set to do that and the will to do
Right.
that. And I know a lot of people don't, but I think that's the price point they need to get to.
Well, and that's
800 at most.
not to mention that there is like in Team Linux's response, which we've been kind of pulling from for this whole conversation, they called out the minis forum PCs, which we've talked about in the past, which are these like mini, like set top box sized PCs. And the idea that somebody could buy something like that and then turn that into a Steam machine or something like that, like as a
Yeah, I've seen
viable
some
alternative,
videos of people doing that. There's like people over on YouTube doing it.
But that's the
ETA
thing is,
Prime is a great
you
channel to check out if you're interested.
you look at something like this and it's like I could see Steam making something like this with a Steam logo on it and having it have.
Yeah, they look like Steam's design. Like, it's pretty fucking ugly, some of these things, and I could easily see that Valve would do something like this, but I think the IO is interesting. I think you could just shove the same IO they've got on the dock with, like, what, 1 USB-C port, a display port, HDMI, and then like the 2 USB sockets. You'd be fine with that. The Minis Forum stuff is confusing, right? Because you click onto them, they look cheap. It's like from 500 quid, but that doesn't include any RAM or any storage. If you add that yourself, it's that price. But if you get them to add it, it can double. You go from a bare bones system on a Neptune HX99, it goes from being 750 up to 1,000 when you start adding in RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD in there. And then it
I
costs more
mean,
if you want to ship to EU or the UK.
so they have the Minis Forum HN2673 is like the most expensive one. If you go for the 64 gigabytes of RAM with the 1 terabyte, it's still only $800.
Yeah, and that's the price point I think they need to target
Yeah.
is get it under the $800, and I feel like that's the price point you could go for. And these are really capable devices. Yeah, I highly recommend if you're interested in a Minisforum machine, go check out the ETA Prime YouTube channel. He does some great videos on them. He's installed the Holo ISO on these, so you can see them running SteamOS if you want to. And he checks out a bunch of games, things like GTA 5 and some of the more modern games, and benchmarks them. It's well worth a watch, and you can kind of get an idea of what these machines are capable of. Because I think a lot of people write them off because they're tiny little machines, and they're probably, oh, that's not going to be any good, but they're pretty capable in terms of gaming machines.
Yeah, I think unfortunately something like this is gonna probably be our path forward for a Steam machine, at least for now. But I mean, you never know, right? I could see Valve potentially partnering with a company like that and doing in the same way they did the original Steam machines, right? Where like they didn't make them themselves, they partnered with other developers to make their line of them, right? So who knows? Never say never, right? You never know what Valve's gonna do. I never thought they would put out a handheld, so we'll see. But
Yeah,
I think it would be cool to see them make a play for the living room again. Because I mean they're making a play for the console space. Why not? Right? Let's see them take over the world.
yeah, be cool.
All right. So thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. If you want to write in with your thoughts on the future of the Steam machines, anything else we've talked about on this show, or any episode of the Steam Deck Podcast, remember, there's a bunch of ways you can get involved. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find our email address to write into the question block, just like everybody did for this week's main topic. You can come join our Discord where the conversation about the Steam Deck keeps rolling between episodes, and you can submit questions for the show, get your questions asked, or come and hit up the help desk if you need help with one of Steve's Steam Deck tutorials. We did have a couple more questions in the question block that we did not get to this week. But guess what? We'll save them for next week. So if we didn't answer your question, keep it tuned. And I know I will say this though. We did have a question about a tutorial that I told everybody that I was going to be working on in the Discord, and I'll give you a short update. I'm going to be working on a tutorial on how to turn your Steam Deck into the ultimate emulation machine, including hooking it up to a CRT so that you can play your classic games in the most authentic way possible without having to maintain a bunch of classic hardware. So I will provide an update on that tutorial on next week's show. So
Nice.
flipscreen.games, go check the links. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. I've been Pete. He's been Steve. Wait, oh, I did it right this time. There we go. We'll see you next week, baby.